Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea Time with New Jersey Tea Party Coalition. I'm your host tonight. My name is Michelle Talamo, and I have two great guests with us. We have Reverend Stephen Kraft, and we have Barbara from Harlem. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Now, our subject tonight is going to be traditional values and what the traditional value candidates need to do to be on the same plane and be on the same speaking terms in the African American community. So let's ask you first, Reverend Kraft, how do you feel the traditional value candidate can best gain entry into the Black community and speak on the same level?
No. I truly believe, Michelle, that there is a key word that all human beings must do, and that is be able to relate one to another without always getting caught up in outward appearance, ethnicity, the differences. When our traditional candidates go into the churches, Black people traditionally have always leaned on the fellowship and the strength and the foundation of the Black church. I tell my traditional candidates, go into those churches, just like you see the other side go in. You go into those churches, begin to minister to the people based on their felt needs. What are some of the felt needs in urban communities? Building strong families, coming against fatherlessness and illegitimacy, finding good employment and business opportunities, coming in there, helping them to develop God's plan and purpose for their lives. There are commonalities among all classes of people, whether they're suburban, rural, or urban. They're called felt needs. And when we speak to people out of their own felt needs, there's always going to be a bonding, because that's how relationships are made.
Barbara, did you agree with that approach?
Yes, I do. My philosophy is study those that you oppose. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they need to study to see what works in the urban community and then follow that pattern. People want to know that you really care.
Right.
And if you don't put boots on the ground, on their turf, talking their language, you're never going to win them over to your side. You're not going to be able to convey the message of values, because they'll tune you out if they don't think that you care.
True.
Okay, so
and the average person would do that.
So when you speak about having the same language, I
Yes.
think that we touched on this prior. How do you feel about what is the language, what is the dialogue, and what's the difference in the approach of the comprehension of what a word really means?
It would depend on what the subject at hand may be. For example, if we're talking about government, we have to realize that when Caucasians and people of traditional values talk about limiting government, that is not the right message to bring when they go into the urban community.
True.
Because when the urban community hear the term limited government, Michelle, what comes to their mind is, you're trying to put us back into slavery. You're trying to put us back on the plantation. You're trying to put us back on the back of the bus. And where they get these ideas is the fact that in their historical context, it was big government, it was the federal government that brought them out of slavery. It was the federal government that brought them out of Jim Crow segregation. See? So when they hear the term, we have to limit government, what they hear, what the people in the urban community hear is, you're trying to take us back into a place we refuse to go. So what I tell people is, instead of talking about things that are going to divide us, we have to find commonalities. This is what Barbara was saying. We have to find commonalities. For example, everybody loves their children. So we have to talk about how do we partner with you to help strengthen the family? Mm-hmm. How do we partner with you to help you find ways of taking care of your economic needs? How can we partner with you to deal with some of the issues that you have? And the only way we're going to find out what your concerns are is if we ask you and you tell us.
True.
not us telling you what we think you need when you've never walked in our shoes. So that's what we have to do, and that's why people must learn across the spectrum on how to communicate one with the other. In my position, I talk to anybody about anything, anywhere, anyhow. I love people. I'm not intimidated by people based on the color of their skin or their religion or their socioeconomic status. 2 weeks ago, I was down in Sterling, Virginia, and talked to some of my good traditional brethren, and a football player. He's retired now, Sean Alexander, who used to play for the Seattle Seahawks. He was the MPV for years, from 2000 to 2005, running back. He was there, he was the keynote speaker for parental rights. And he was talking about how now that he's retired from the NFL, his main ministry is being a father to his children and being a good husband to his wife, and he is homeschooling his children. Now that was powerful. To hear a black ex-NFL football player from the Seattle Seahawks talking about homeschooling to a black audience and to a white audience. Those kind of messages sell, because those kind of messages are going to get people to sit up and take notice. But if he came in there and started pointing fingers at the Caucasians and says, you white people are a problem, you have kept us down. In other words, if he came in there with race baiting, he would have turned the people off. But he came in there with a message that anybody could receive. He came there with a message of hope and a message of empowerment about how do we protect our children. We protect our children, he told them, by empowering the family. See, so we have to learn, we have to find out, as I always say when I'm speaking, find out where people itch, and that's where you scratch.
Yeah, and I would just add to that is when people mention limiting the government, they also hear my food stamps are going to be cut.
Right.
Affordable housing is going to be stopped. Section 8 won't be around anymore. And when I say talk on the terms that they're talking about, instead of just talking about the budget and et cetera, because a lot of us are not at that level. Just talk about, you know, if this goes up, your money shrinks. Language like that, that relates to when they have to go to the store and put food on the table for their children.
So one could say the tie-in here is education
Yes.
and jobs. Because once someone has the proper education and gets the proper job, they move out of that dependence
Right.
on food stamps, and they have, and Section 8, which is necessary for some
Yes.
people to get a
Yes.
leg up.
Yes.
Well, once you get that leg up, you're not in a box that you're locked into. You can then step out of that and have more choices.
Exactly.
More choices for your family, more choices for your lifestyle,
Exactly.
more opportunity.
Exactly.
You see, I think people are going to have to be retrained to think that way
Right.
because they've been trained to think that they're victims.
Yes.
And they're afraid of responsibility because the other side and another side, we know what we're talking about, has basically told them that you need me to succeed at anything that you do. I'm there for you. And in the meantime, that program has penetrated their minds, and they think that they have to depend on other people to pursue their happiness. So they have to be retrained mentally. So what's going to happen, a values candidate is really going to have to put boots on the ground.
Right.
And also, you know, teaching them that they can go beyond what they've been taught that they can accomplish.
Exactly.
In other words, every human being is given potential.
Right.
But you got to find that way to spark that potential.
Right.
So that person will start saying, I can do this. I can do more than a minimum wage job. I have potential. I can start a business. I'm a great seamstress. I'm a great cook. And they need to be taught that these things are available to them in the United States of America because of capitalism and the free market.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we have to remove some of that fear,
We
the
have
fear
to.
of the unknown.
Absolutely.
Because we all learn from our parents.
Absolutely.
And if our parents have a certain way of operation, we as children observe this.
Exactly.
And we follow.
And we have that faith that we can do it
That's
too.
right.
Exactly.
right.
And see, another good point, I'm glad Barbara brought this up, and this just occurred to me. In the urban community is not monolithic. You have in black culture everything from billionaires to multimillionaires to millionaires to middle class to working class to underclass. There is a conception that if you're in black America, you're automatically a part of the underclass. That's a liberal narrative to keep people in a mindset of dependency.
Absolutely.
When I go to black churches, or if I go to Tea Party meetings or John Birch Society meetings or wherever, I always get people to understand that, as Barbara was saying, God has created every human being with a purpose. God is no respecter of persons. Everyone can achieve, everyone has dreams. But the narrative is to keep people in a mindset, because the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So when people are conditioned to think that they are dependent on government or anything else, then we can't expect them to want anything more. But when we can show people, look, you see this guy over here? Like when I brought Sean Alexander in, I says, or you look at a Dr. Ben Carson, how many people do you know that are brain surgeons? He's black just like you are. Why is it that he's a brain surgeon and this other old boy over here is in the Crips and Bloods? But we can't link all of them together, because just like the Caucasian culture is not monolithic, we have whites in Appalachia in trailer homes. We have whites sitting in Beverly Hills. Well, then where do we get the idea that all blacks are on welfare and Section 8? The whole thing is nonsense.
Yeah, but you have Condoleezza Rice.
Right.
Exactly.
What an accomplished
You have Clarence
woman
Thomas, right?
who was vilified at every turn and abused. And Clarence Thomas, his hearings were off the chart.
Now they're on Ben Carson.
Well, you know, this is a thing, because if you are a Republican, I saw a sign in Newark, New Jersey. It said, "The road to hell is paved with Republicans." So if you have an R by your name, you're on the way to hell. I saw that. I wish I had taken a picture of it. The people in the urban community are trained also to just hate the word.
Yeah.
Hate the Republican word. You know, when I'm talking with people and they say, "You must be a Republican," I know what that means. Mm-hmm. I know that behind closed doors, they're cursing me out for whatever I said. Mm-hmm. Because that's not a nice word in the urban community. Republican, no way. That's why I say there has to be a retraining, reprogramming. A values candidate has to have presence in that community.
Right.
Programs need to be developed just to address those issues.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, you know, they need to be, and be it Republican or Democrat, I don't care. If you have the right values,
Right.
Absolutely.
you know, that's what's
important.
really important, because we need
Right.
to have
Right.
change for the better.
Right.
I don't
Right.
want to say the word change, because, well, change isn't good,
I know.
because sometimes it's not better for us.
Right.
So we need to have a change that it's a betterment for society, the right
Absolutely.
choices for society. And no matter what the candidate is, whether they're Democrat, Green
Republican,
Party,
whatever.
Republican, or unaffiliated, independent, it doesn't matter.
True,
I am
true.
looking at those values and what they're going to bring to the community and what they're going to do for the constituents in a meaningful way. Patterson is still Patterson. It hasn't changed.
You're right.
I have no idea what Congressman Pasquale is doing, but Patterson, from what I can see, has not gotten any better. You have Camden, you have Newark,
yeah.
and we just don't see the right things coming out of it, and the money keeps going in,
That's right.
and nobody can account for where the money goes.
Same
And
thing
we just
happening.
keep paying
Yeah.
more and more
Yeah.
money into social systems that are being
Don't
corrupted
produce. Right.
by the processes. And if we had a non-corrupt process in front of us and systems in front of us, we would have enough money to take care of the disabled, the infirm, those who are elderly. But the systems are being robbed.
Absolutely, because even Harlem, I mean, way back, you know, money was just dumped into Harlem. All of these training programs were supposed to produce people that wanted to work, were willing to work. What happened? The poverty index in Harlem is about 43.3%. It's high. It's
Wow.
high, and those are people basically dependent upon the government. And I'm not talking about the disabled, and I'm not talking about the veterans, etc. I'm talking about able-bodied people that have been so what can I say? So feeling so down about themselves, and they've listened to the disenfranchised. That's the word, and they've heard the messages that white America is your greatest enemy. They've given up on themselves, and I notice even in urban communities, they usually have these training programs that teach them how to work at low paying, low wage, level entry jobs. They don't teach them to go above that. So you see, they believe in the victim pool. So even with the money going in to train people to work a minimum wage job, that's a waste of money. But you see, that gives them a platform, so when they run for office, they can say, we're gonna fight for you to get more than minimum wage. Well, minimum education, minimum skills equal minimum wage. And millions of taxpayer dollars are going into these programs and producing what? Minimum wage workers.
And
You're right. You bring a great up. Why aren't they having programs? Not everybody is suitable for college. So
No.
why aren't they having programs that are teaching them, you know, skills that they can use in manufacturing,
Yes.
things that they can do, woodworking, carpentry.
point well taken.
Absolutely.
Point well taken. I was a prison chaplain for years.
That's right.
Some of your most skilled artisans are sitting up in the penitentiary. When I would make my rounds, and this was a maximum security penitentiary in the state of Missouri, Jefferson City Correctional Center. When I would make my rounds in hobbycraft, I would see, man, carpentry, I would see woodworking, I would see artistry, where some of these guys that are in for murder could have been millionaires. See, all of our problems...
That's kind of backwards, isn't it? We
Yes.
train them after they're in prison.
Yeah, all of our problems have a moral and spiritual root across the board. You mentioned a key word, corruption. Corruption doesn't come out of thin air. Corruption is a result of the wickedness and evil that's in the human heart. And we'll never have a system and a society free of corruption as long as we refuse to take on a position of righteousness and morality. One of the tracks that I use all the time is called Back to Basis. And I'll read for your viewers. Freedom cannot exist without morality. The phrase immoral free people make no more sense than the phrase dry water. Unless we have sufficient moral character, we cannot govern ourselves. Therefore, when morality and character decline, the abuse of rights automatically increase, and that is why government keeps increasing, because you have to have more government in order to control an immoral people. If people refuse to self-govern themselves by saying, I will not murder, I will not steal, I will not sell drugs, I will not commit violence, I will take care of my family. If we don't help people to see that morality and character, and this is what Dr. King said years ago.
Yes, he did.
If we judge people by their skin rather than by the content of their character, what can we expect but corruption as a result? But if we tell people, look, God created you for more than what you're doing. You're better than that. You are living below your potential. We have so many people who are incarcerated that are plumbers, that some of them are paralegals. They can't get law licenses, obviously, but they know the law. They sit up in the law library in the penitentiary studying the law. A lot of them are preachers, backslidden preachers. A lot of them have all kinds of blue-collar skills. Blue-collar skills are excellent opportunities. We should be putting vocational schools where people can learn welding, carpentry, plumbing, electrical. These skills pay excellent wages. See, so a lot of people don't have to say, well, I'm not college material. They have skills working with their hands.
Yeah.
Booker T.
I don't want a college graduate when I have a problem with the water at home.
Exactly. You need a plumber.
I need a plumber.
See, and plumbers make excellent money.
Oh,
See?
very
See?
well.
You're absolutely right. But like in the prison, you have a lot of it's a high percentage of fatherless children, children who don't have that family structure, and I think, and I may be way off, but we have to find some way to focus on the family and let people know how important that family is, how important it is to really love your child, loving your child by giving your child the basics, loving your child by giving your child the foundation whereby they can think for themselves and think in terms of morality and choosing right instead of wrong.
Exactly.
I think a lot of our problem starts right there in the home.
In the home, that's where they all start.
And until we address that issue sufficiently, because a lot of parents are saying, I love my child. But love goes beyond, a $100 pair of sneakers.
Exactly.
If you love that child, you're going to try to give that child a structured home.
Exactly.
You're going to try to give that child a safe home. And you're going to try to give that child the basics and the socialization skills that they need to navigate through life.
Exactly.
That's love.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I don't think a lot of our children are being loved. That's why they're so violent.
Exactly.
That's why we have a high percentage of them committing suicide.
And murder.
And the black on black rate for murder is just off the charts.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
So, all of those things are good, but if that child doesn't have those parents and close relatives involved or applauding them and affirming them along the way, it's harder. It's very hard.
Yeah,
So they need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points. Now, the article that you were reading from, and you also have a book that our readers may be interested in.
Yeah. This book I wrote in 2008, but it's still evergreen. It's entitled Morality and Freedom, America's Dynamic Duo. And basically the premise of the book, and then a couple of weeks ago, I did a talk with a Tea Party group, and it was recorded into a DVD, Morality and Freedom, What the Nations Require. And basically it transcends race and culture, and it goes to the issue of character and morals with all people. And it was like Barbara just got done saying, the problems start at home. Because the first line of influence to any child is family. And when the family is twisted, everything else after that is going to be twisted. See, when you talk about, for example, gangs, all gangs are counterfeit families.
That's all.
Yes,
That's all they are.
substitutes, right?
That's all they
That's
are.
right. That's right. That's what.
That's all they are. They're counterfeit families.
Right.
Kids only know what they know. They do not know what they do not know. So, like, for example, when I was at the parental rights meeting a couple weeks ago, and Sean Alexander, who is a millionaire, but yet he says, it's not about the money. He says, I live well. My wife and I live well. He says, but my job now, my greatest love is building character into my children. And I stood there and I watched him and listened to him, and he would take some of his football examples of when he was playing football, and he would draw like diagrams and talk about boundaries and then tie the football boundary into boundaries of life. And that's some of the things, and his kids would love that because they'd see all his trophies in the basement, and he would tell them how these trophies, like he would take the idea of being a running back, and he would say, like, you have to run away from temptation and things that's wrong to run to the goal line.
To be successful.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Absolutely.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Now,
It
but
is.
this leads us right back to where we started on the program about how the traditional value candidates need to connect. And they need to
Yes.
connect, then, would it be fair to say, education, jobs, opportunity,
yeah.
and the family unit?
Yes, exactly,
Right.
exactly. And what we want to challenge the viewers, Michelle, today is simply this. They must go into the communities and sow those seeds, because by them staying away, all they do, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When they stay away, the people say, these Republicans or whoever, they really don't care. Because if they did care, they'd come in here. And the fact that they don't come validates the fact that they don't care.
Validates their conception.
Thank you.
Very good example. I've worked with, campaigning with a gentleman from Egypt, a doctor from Egypt. And he'd never been in a campaign before, but he decided to run for a Senate seat in Jersey. We took him, my daughter and I took him to a main street in Newark, New Jersey, walking up and down the street, shaking people's hands. I only had one person to ask me, well, what party does he belong to? And I said, what difference does that make if he can help your life get better and help Newark get better? So anyway, I had people running up to me, one young lady, can I shake his hand? Can I shake his hand? I said, yeah, come on, baby, come on, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we did that for a couple of hours, up and down, I think it's Market Street. Didn't have any complaints, didn't have any problems or whatever. Just before we left, a young man ran up behind us and tapped me on the shoulder, or tapped him on the shoulder, and said, I'm going to vote for you because you came into the hood.
Great story.
Okay.
Great story.
And he was from Egypt. He didn't look like, you know, a black person. And they didn't know what party he was from. And I believe the gentleman voted for him just because he came into the hood. Because that showed that he respected black people.
Well, you know, I think it's an important point also that
Yes.
we also, those of us who are not in the urban community, need to go in as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, this has been a great show. My time with the two of you always moves too fast. Always moves too fast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And we also want, I know you
Yes.
have a website.
Yes, I do. BarbaraFromHarlemUSA.com. And please be on the lookout for Barbara from Harlem, Breaking Free. That's a book that I'm working on, and we're trying to get it in print now. But it addresses a lot of these same issues about, you know, you study those that you oppose. And we put some strategies in here.
Great so much, Barbara. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to our viewers. And I must thank our crew because they're always there. They're behind the scenes when they're working hard. So thank you for tuning in, and check us out on our website, New Jersey NJ TeaPartyCoalition.org. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Yes. Very nice.